It's Ramon Foster for Wesley Mortgage, y'all. Here's a website, whywesley.com. And I'm going to tell you why in a second, but WHYWESLEY.com, whywesley.com. And it starts with the owner, Chuck McDowell, who's a local Nashville native, man, that cares about this community and is proud to serve it. Chuck reinvests in the people and the places that make Nashville such a wonderful place. While other mortgage companies are downsizing, Chuck McDowell and the Wesley Mortgage team are rapidly expanding in Nashville, keeping people working in the careers that they love, and they would love to have you join their team, which is why I gave you the website, all right? Chuck and the leadership team at Wesley Mortgage have a support system in place to help you succeed in the mortgage business, ensuring your loans close on time, making sure you get paid, giving you back the time to build your business, and bring back the fun to the mortgage professional. With unique opportunities with the Tennessee Titans in the Music City Grand Prix, they make closing deals and building relationships fun again. So if you're in the mortgage industry and you're tired of the grind, tired of the pressure, and tired of the micromanaging everything to make sure your clients get handled correctly, then you owe it to yourself to go to whywesley.com.
Panzika from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The NFL draft is in the books, and the Tennessee Titans came away with 7 selections. Offensive tackle J.C. Latham, defensive tackle Tavondre Sweat, linebacker Cedric Gray, wide receiver Jaquan Jackson, cornerback Jarvis Brownlee, linebacker James Williams, and edge rusher Jalen Harrell. Titans GM Rand Carthon talked about the draft haul after the end of day 3.
I feel really good about the draft class and what these guys are going to be able to come in and do. I think we have some guys that are come in and compete to start, And I think we have some guys that'll come in and compete for spots and, make us a team with some depth.
In NFL news this morning, the Dallas Cowboys have brought back running back Ezekiel Elliott on a one-year deal. The 28-year-old spent last season with the New England Patriots. Speaking of, the Patriots and defensive tackle Christian Barmore have reached an agreement on a 4-year deal with max value of $92 million, including over $41 million guaranteed. The Nashville Predators had a 3-1 lead with less than 3 minutes to play, but gave up 2 goals as Brock Boeser scored with 6 seconds left to complete a hat trick and force overtime. At 3-3, the Canucks scored just over a minute into OT to take Game 4, 4-3, and take a 3-1 series lead. They head back to Vancouver for Game 5 Tuesday night. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
How's morale? We've got a draft class in place. It was a fun weekend of watching prospects get their NFL dreams realized, and absolutely nothing else happened in local professional sports that would possibly take away from that or take away the good vibes this morning, right? Welcome in.
Sure.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Jackson, Lucas, the whole crowd. If you want to interact on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, you can do that. You can live stream the show right there and interact with us throughout the course of the day. We're with you until 1 o'clock. Preds let Vancouver off the hook again. Really, really bad last night at Bridgestone Arena. I don't know. Do you want to rip the Band-Aid off and do that? Or do you want to talk about this draft class? Because I spent a whole weekend talking about the draft class. I can do a little Preds if you want me to.
Oof, that was brutal, man.
You were there.
I was there. The crowd was buzzing.
And I was not.
Yeah,
It's your fault.
Maybe.
It's not on me.
3-1, and that game, it felt like there was no doubt. The Preds were winning that game. They gave a goal up early, but were the better team for the vast majority of that game, like they were on Friday. And against the third-string goalie of the Vancouver Canucks, the Preds are up 3-1, less than 3 minutes to play, and an absolute collapse. A hat trick for Brock Boeser. He scores 2 goals within the last 2.5 minutes. Go to overtime, and maybe 70 seconds, 80 seconds into the extra period, Canucks take Game 4. They sweep the Preds in Games 3 and 4 and go back to Vancouver with a chance to eliminate the Nashville Predators this week.
The empty net chance is going to haunt them. The post stopping it that way just rips your soul out of your body because you just want to lock it up. You just want you want the cherry on top of the sundae that is a fun Game 4 win at home or a theoretical Game 4 win at home because you got Levis getting snapped catfish to him by Lloyd Cushenberry, getting the crowd hype. You got little Big Town singing the national anthem and knocking it out of the park.
They crushed it.
You got Taylor Lewan crushing beers, and you got Win Lewan crushing waters.
That was awesome.
The vibes were electric, and everything was gravy. And then with 6.2 seconds left, and Yussi makes the initial save, which kills you, and he's just slightly out of position. It's a great hustle play by the Canucks player for what's his name?
Brock Boeser.
That scored all 3.
The hat trick.
Unbelievable effort by Boeser last night. But
that crowd was so stunned. I don't know the last time I saw a crowd that stunned.
Well, I did a playoff game for the Titans involving the Cincinnati Bengals not too long ago that looked like a bomb hit the place. But
man,
yeah, that's a tough one. So there's the medicine on the front end. We'll talk. Teresa Walker was both with me throughout the course of the draft weekend and also covering the Nashville Predators because the woman does not stop. Of the Associated Press, she'll be in here in the 11 o'clock hour.
What would Teresa do if the Grizzlies were in the playoffs? Like, how would Teresa survive that?
She'd be in Memphis today, and she would not be in studio with us.
Man.
She does this stuff every year. She's a miracle of modern science, and she will give us our analysis and tell us what we are talking about incorrectly in the 11 o'clock hour, like I said. Titans draft, 7 picks, 5 defense, 2 offense. And we have not spoke on the radio show since before J.C. Latham met with the media in person on Friday. A lot has happened since then. How's morale? 615-737-1045. What's your gut feeling about the draft class? I'm not asking you for grades. I don't do that. Not interested in what somebody on some aggregator on CBS Sports had to say or what Pro Football Focus is giving you your instantaneous draft reactions, whatever the case may be. How do you feel about the new players on your roster based on the need? Somebody who knows the roster, unless you're like that one caller last week who looked at the roster on Tuesday, said, oh no, called us and won some tickets.
Do you have we put it to a poll, describe the 2024 draft class in one word for the Titans. Do you have a word that comes to mind?
Can I hyphenate it?
Sure.
Meat and potatoes. It's just the basic stuff.
Shepherd's pie.
This is shepherd's pie too fancy. Shepherd's pie is like
too fancy.
It's too done up. This is just like steamed meat and steamed vegetables in front of you, okay? This is the stuff that you're not overwhelming. It's not socks for Christmas. It's a little better than that. Maybe the meat's got a little flavor, but nothing crazy, right? We're not getting crazy with the sriracha sauces. We're not adding things. This is very, very basic, fundamental, but nutritious and necessary meal that the Titans have fed you with the 7-man draft class.
A lot of protein, a lot of carbs.
Meat, potatoes. That's this draft class.
Mine's beefy.
Well, that's the first 2 rounds for sure. About 706 plus pounds of beef in the first 2 rounds. So, in order, J.C. Latham, 7th overall. T'Vondre Sweat, the Texas nose tackle, with a little bit of controversy around him. We'll discuss throughout the course of today. Cedric Gray, they have a long wait. That's the longest I've ever felt like a draft has dragged on, between 38 and 106. Just sitting around waiting for Cedric Gray, the North Carolina linebacker. Jarvis Brownlee, who and we'll talk about our favorite picks and our least favorite picks of this class. Jarvis Brownlee might be mine. The 5th-round corner out of Louisville. Jaquan Jackson, the only other offensive player in this draft class. He is the former college roommate of Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears was at the draft party. Tajay Spears was on the Zoom call with us from Jaquan Jackson's draft party when Jaquan Jackson was answering his questions with us.
That was cool.
After getting drafted. Very cool indeed. Ed Reed, also his uncle. So maybe Ed Reed show up at a couple Titans practices here in the near future. James Williams, who is a safety but will be a linebacker, even though he's never played a down there here in Tennessee. And Jalen Harrell, the final pick, 252, 7th round, the edge player from Michigan. That's the Titans 2024 draft class. Meat, potatoes. So, my initial reaction to all of that, before we talk about, trade scenarios that may or may not have presented themselves and what Rand Carthon had to say about it, before we talk about the vetting process that they told us they went exhaustively through on somebody who's got a few red flags like T'Vondre Sweat very much does. Before we talk about a lack of outright offensive firepower in this draft, despite you thinking that you're just, going to turn into a total finesse team and score 35 points a game based on your head coach's comments this offseason, this is my takeaway. They looked at your roster and saw the same problems that we've all been talking about for months. That you need a left tackle, you got one. That you need a high-end, hopefully, running mate for Jeffrey Simmons on the inside, you got one. That you needed a starting linebacker right out the gate, so he's not perfect, Cedric Gray. I've got some quibbles with him. It was not a good inside linebacker class, but you have somebody who you think can step in there right away, a former 3-year starter at North Carolina. He's got the credentials to be able to do the job. We'll see if he actually wins it or not. And then you fill out basically the rest of it with special teams and depth. That's what this roster needed. So for those of you a little bit underwhelmed or saying, where's the receiver? You got one. Or saying, what about all the firepower we talked about? You signed it already. This is the kind of fundamental fixes that the Titans needed to go out and find. Now, in a perfect world, you wouldn't want your first 2 picks as a part of that foundation laying process to have legitimate questions about them. Because the legitimate question about J.C. Latham is he going to cut it at left tackle? I think he's capable. Bill Callahan sure as hell thinks he's capable. That's good enough for me. We'll see what happens. T'Vondre Sweat, twofold. Maturity issues, question mark? Rand Carthon made it sound like, and Brian Callahan also spoke with us after the Friday pick of Tavondre Sweat at 38 overall. And they said that they went through a very exhaustive vetting process with him. The Titans were the first visit that he had after the DWI arrest that happened earlier this month. They also made a impromptu trip down to his hometown to visit with Sweat and his entire family and make sure that they checked all the necessary boxes before they spent the 38th overall pick on this player. He is not just a question mark from a maturity standpoint, but a physical standpoint. He's generously 366 is what he's listed at. There has been, and it's just rumors about what he's weighed at various points in time, but we'll just say that he has clocked in higher than that before, and he's the only person in the history of the Senior Bowl to not want to weigh in, which is a red flag, okay? Brian Callahan described it as a big man with big man problems and came right out and said, he's very aware of how financially costly it can be if you continue to come in overweight. Those things add up, and that's, we've made him infinitely aware about that. They've got a lot riding on those two. There are legitimate questions about both of them. They both project as good to above average pros at the next level. Not just Latham, but Sweat is the Outland Trophy winner.
Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
He is one of the most impactful defensive linemen in this class, and depending on how you stacked him because of those various issues that you took into account, trenches, beef, depth, teams, just core things that this roster required. Now, would you have liked a little bit more? We can talk about the idea of trade value and if the Titans missed some opportunities to pick up some additional draft assets, because it's fair to argue that was indeed the case. You'll hear from the necessary parties coming up throughout the course of the show. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. This is the absolute worst time of the year to be dealing with joint pain. You can't do the outdoor stuff you love to do, like hiking or jogging, biking, playing on the beach, whatever it is. If you've got nagging joint pain, you can't do it without QC Kinetics. They're here to help you find out how they can use biologics from your own body to give new life to your achy joints. QC's regenerative medicine protocols can restore and repair that damaged tissue with no surgery, no steroids, no drugs, no downtime. It's the future of medicine. Tens of thousands of QC Kinetics patients around the country are living their best life this year because they made the call. QC medical professionals are under the direction of Dr. Mitchell Shinecup, who is an orthopedic surgeon who became a true pioneer in regenerative medicine. He knew there had to be a better way, and he's brought it to patients with QC Kinetics. Call them now for a free consultation, 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. So you got a draft class. I got a live show for you. I got a live show with General Manager Rand Carthon and Greg Cosell of NFL Films coming up on Friday. He was on Ramon, Kayla, and Will this morning. If you want to hear from the GM in between now and then, but we're looking forward to seeing 300 of you in the house to break down this new 7-man Titans draft class and all the fun moves that they made in free agency. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the show. We're fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. You can check out one of any of their locations here in the Middle Tennessee area. And if you listen to us outside of Middle Tennessee, if you're in Texas, if you're in Vegas, they got Hattie B's there for you too. Download the app while you're at it. You can order it online. So, Rand Carthon, he said before in the pre-draft that this draft felt like his first draft to some extent. Now, that wasn't a veiled shot or anything at Vrabel or the way that things went down last year or whatever, because I know some of you tried to make it that. It was just simply because he's got a new head coach. It's new systems that they're putting players in. It's still the same scouts, so some of the processes are the same. But for the most part, pretty different feel. And you can tell by the players, even just the vibe, Lucas. I don't know, did you watch many of these dudes' Zoom calls with us? They've all got big personalities.
Yeah.
Save, I didn't really get too big of a vibe off of Jalen Harrell. But the rest of them were very, very engaging. And they're obviously excited. This is the biggest night of their life to date, I'm sure for many of them. But they all seem kind of, have bigger, outspoken personalities, which I think are going to inject some youth and energy into that locker room.
Especially Sweat, which is part of his evaluation, right? That can work to your favor. That can work to your detriment. T'Vondre Sweat was my favorite profile to read from Dane Brugler's breakdown from his draft guide in The Beast. So in his strengths, there is a quote from an NFL scout that says, "Did you see the new Mario movie? When Donkey Kong pounds the snot out of Mario, it gave me flashbacks of Sweat's film." So that was one of my favorite comps, was to the Mario movie. But in the weaknesses, scouts describing him a, quote, party animal, class clown, things that can make you an infectious personality that players are drawn to in the locker room, right? But obviously, this was under his weaknesses category, things that can work to your detriment when off-field issues come up.
Now, wait. The party animal thing. Those words are used. Party animals used.
That is the quote. Yes.
Okay.
By NFL scouts to Dane Brugler.
Are these the same NFL scouts? Because I don't know specifically examples that they're citing. Prior to the DWI, and it doesn't mean that he hasn't gotten in trouble and gotten off the hook for something that we don't know about, because I'm sure all the different incidents that these guys have in their background, NFL scouts and the private investigators that teams hire and all this kind of stuff, they know more about them than I do. But it's kind of like, people knocking Spencer Rattler for the show that he was on in high school, in the draft process, which we'll talk about.
I think it's a little bit different. Spencer Rattler, you're talking about something that happened senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. With Sweat, I think it's about his personality, which again can work to his strength. It could also be considered a weakness depending on who you're talking to. And Sweat did have a recent off-field issue.
Sure.
Spencer Rattler has not.
Sure. And I'm not trying to downplay DWI or anything like that. Let me make that clear. Like it's a legitimate, it's very questionable decision-making. Now, apparently the explanation, he wouldn't provide us additional details. He said it's an ongoing legal situation. That's fine, as is his right. Rand Carthon said he wasn't going to disclose anything that Sweat wasn't going to tell us, but basically that the explanation that they received about the situation that he was in, he took onus for it, but that it was that they were explained the details sufficiently enough to where they didn't feel like it was as big a deal as it was being made, even though while taking seriously the idea of driving while under the influence. So, he is probably the biggest kind of red flag player that they have right now, with legitimate questions about how it's going to work. And teams take risks all the time in the draft process. You have to, if you feel good enough about your process and about the player himself. I want to hear from Rand Carthon, though, about guys that can start right away, because apparently he thinks there's more than one.
Long day, a lot of picks, a lot of names called, a lot of stuff to work through, but we made it through, and then just left the trading room floor, downstairs getting the, as we started the undrafted process. So went that one over, pretty smooth. I feel really good about the draft class and what these guys are going to be able to come in and do. I think we have some guys that are come in and compete to start, and I think we have some guys that are come in and compete for spots and, make us a team with some depth. And, know there's still some holes to fill, and we're going to get to it. Left some open roster spots instead of filling it up with, just all college free agents. We want to be able to have some flexibility to sign some vets and not have to just cut people. But looking forward to it.
So that's Rand Carthon on Saturday after they wrap up. They think they've got some guys that can come in and compete for spots right away. So beyond Latham, Sweat for sure needs to be, if he's going to live up to the investment that they made in him. For a franchise, and I know it's not the person that drafted guys like Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley, but there are, they have struggled in the first couple of rounds, and certainly on these top 100 draft picks, of which they only had 2 this year. Very famously, 2 within the top 106. Sweat needs to be an immediate contributor right out of the gate, and that's just as much on the people that drafted him and the coaching staff, Tracy Rocker, as it is on Sweat.
Your first 3 picks are arguably your 3 day one starters out of the draft class.
Well, Cedric Gray is my concern. Now, not like there's any such thing as a perfect prospect, because Peyton Wilson fell through the draft to the 3rd round because of all kind of medical issues, and he was clearly a higher level talent. But you have to, do the cost-benefit analysis on this, and plenty of teams looked at the medicals and said, no, not for us. Pittsburgh took a risk. Cedric Gray's greatest deficiency, and if you have the beast in front of you, it may be worth reading what Dane has about him word for word, but in most draft analyses that you read about Cedric Gray from people smarter than I about this, is that his biggest difficulty is the ability to key and diagnose. And that is pretty essential as a green dot linebacker that's going to be calling a defense. Now, they seem to think that he's capable of doing it. He's a 3-year starter. He's very productive, very good in coverage, but not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. If you have to skimp a little bit at linebacker, which it feels like they might have to do this year, it benefits those guys to play behind big bodies like Sweat and Jeff that can keep the offensive linemen off them.
It's not something Brugler brings up as a weakness. He says under Cedric Gray's strengths, he ranks Gray the number 6 inside linebacker in the draft. He says solidly built for the position with proportionate arm length, above average speed to run down ball carriers to the sideline, keys quickly, and is always around the ball. Under his weaknesses, he talks about mediocre play strength and that he needs to develop his bulk, struggles to shed once he locks horns with blockers, shaky engagement timing, more likely to use his shoulder than his hands to take on blockers. It's almost all technique stuff with Cedric Gray under the weaknesses when it comes to Brugler. He does not seem to have any issues with Gray's ability to key and diagnose. Overall, he says Gray might not be exceptional in any one area, but he's equal parts athletic and aggressive and is always in the vicinity of the football. He projects as a rotational NFL linebacker and special teamer who will compete for starting reps as a rookie.
I thought it was funny because, not that Bert is any kind of great draft analyst, but to Bert's credit, for as much crap as I give him, he knows prospects. He studies this stuff. He's very in tune to all of these guys coming through the draft process.
Bert knows ball.
As soon as he does, and as soon as we got on primetime last night, Bert sat down and said, the Gray kid's not your linebacker, not your green dot. Said it immediately. Now, he's from that area. He went to ECU. It's not like he's a North Carolina grad. He's not watching North Carolina football every week, but he knows what's going on. And I thought that was pretty interesting right out of the gate. Now, there were obviously some issues on defense at North Carolina throughout the course of Gene Chizik's time there. And that is something that you can't pin entirely on Cedric Gray. So just something to keep an eye on because it's not a shoo-in right away. I think you could also make the argument for Jaquan Jackson at least competing for a starting spot right out the gate because Kyle Phillips should be on notice. They didn't bring up Traylon Burks talking about the slot option. This is a true slot player as a 6th-round pick. He also is a returner. They believe he has dual threat returning ability, so not just punt, but kickoff in the new structure that will be implemented in 2024. And then Jarvis Brownlee, who, is one of the picks that I like the most out of the draft class. I don't know if he's my favorite, but he's one of the picks that I like the most. Immediately fortifies your back end. This is now, barring starting safety help in post-draft free agency, this is now one of the better cornerback groups in football.
Yeah, it's the best position group on the roster, right? It probably already was. in terms of the starter caliber players. But
I'd go along with that.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what's second. What's the second best room in the Titans building behind cornerback after the draft?
Running back.
Just for Pollard and Spears?
Pollard, Spears. I don't know. I kind of like Chestnut.
Jabari Small, UDFA out of Tennessee to the
Homer.
Titans.
Just immediately penciling him in as a critical contributing member.
Future Hall of Famer, I've determined, after breaking down the tape.
You know who else said that?
Who else said that? Devondre Sweat said that, didn't he?
He said if he got down to 255.
He said if I get down to
or 355,
350.
not 255.
Yeah, that's a tall task.
That's a whole nother human. If he gets down to 355, he's a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer.
I mean, the guy gets Vince Wilfork comparisons. And listen, he carries the weight a lot different than J.C. Latham. Like, the two of them, one is 342 and built like Superman, and the other one is not. But he's definitely got the violence to him and is one of the more effective interior rushers from this class. So worth keeping an eye on with Devondre Sweat. On the whole, I mean...
Jonathan on the F&M Bank chat says wide receiver second best on the roster.
No.
So what's your submission?
Running back.
You think the running back room is in a better spot than the wide receiver room?
I don't think they're either of them in a bad spot, but I think in terms of like depth that you feel good about. Like
and depth that you need. You need more depth at receiver than you do at running back.
Hopkins and Ridley are not going to play every snap in all 17 games this year. I'm just, I mean, they're still pretty thin there. Jaquan Jackson is a fun player. He's undersized. He's probably going to have the same issues or just skepticism around him that every other slot player that they've tried to put in here since Adam Humphries has had, which is, can you physically hold up long enough to be a factor here? So they said Anthony Robinson, the assistant general manager, spoke on Saturday. He said that they believe that Jackson has both the ability to play inside and outside, so some versatility there. We'll see how that manifests itself. But, no true issues with the picks themselves beyond Sweat and the value there, right? If you think that you could have gotten them later, and here's the thing that I did a podcast with Rex and PK right after we finished the press conferences on Saturday. And Paul brought up the idea that not that the DUI the DWI should work to your advantage, but if you did all the proper vetting on the human and you were sure that this guy is solid from your standpoint, but you knew that it was still going to bog him down in the draft process, did you really have to take him at 38 if your vetting process was that sound? You see what I'm saying?
Didn't have a third-round pick.
That's true.
It was a long wait to your next pick, and there was a run on defensive tackles in that process.
It's true. And Atlanta doing, again, inexplicable things at defensive tackle, one of the more project defensive tackle prospects, whose name I will not pronounce because I'll sound ridiculous like a dog with peanut butter on the roof of my mouth if I try. Rook is what I'll call him. But
a 404, something like that.
It's not that. But I would like you to continue to try and guess how it's pronounced without looking at the name itself.
I could probably find some different variations.
Anyway,
Ruffera.
So the idea that you just had the 7 picks.
Horo. I'm an idiot and I was wrong.
Yes, I would like that. Every time he screws it up, I would like that. We can do that. Jonathan Hernandez said, didn't they say they had trade offers? In fact, they did. Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan speaking to us on Saturday about the offers that they got specifically for 38. I didn't give you enough time, did I?
Tons of calls. We up until when we walked up here at 4:00 with JC, we had about 8-9 calls, 8-9 offers for the pick, and we were fielding the calls, listening. But one thing we talked about was let's see how this board shakes out. We knew there was going to be an early run on receivers, and we knew that with the defensive tackles that were right there, it was only a matter of time of when that run happened, and you knew that there was going to be a run on the corners right there. And so the receiver run happened early, like we thought. And then as soon as I think it was Washington traded into the pick and took Johnny Newton, we knew that run was going to happen, and it's just the way the board took shape.
All right, so that's Rand speaking about it. Do you have Callahan talking about the same thing? Because Brian Callahan then came in and clarified Rand Carthon's answer about 8 or 9 offers for the number 38th pick.
We do not have that.
What happened to that one?
Nothing happened to that one.
It never existed.
It never existed.
It's
in our world.
In my transcript, I was at the press conference.
Oh, it happened. Yeah, it happened.
It happened. The file does not exist.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the file exist if it was something that I said I wanted this morning?
Well, you say a lot of things, Buck.
All right. Well, the head coach said afterwards, just because we got calls doesn't mean that we felt the value was right and doing the cost-benefit analysis on the player that was there based on who we think we could have gotten had the defensive tackle run continued. Because people got kind of bent when they heard 8 or 9 offers for 38, and you still took the red flag defensive tackle with weight question marks and a bunch of other things around him already. Anyway, probably at one of the higher points for the range that people think he could have slid to. No guarantee that he's there. He's still a hugely productive player in college. We'll see if they have properly equipped themselves with Tracy Rocker and Jeff Simmons and Keandre Coburn, who he knows well from Texas, also on this roster, who he seemed excited to reunite with. They've created an environment, and they think they have scouted the player sufficiently where they feel like they can basically bring him up the way that it needs to be.
It's similar to the Latham thing a little bit, right? Wasn't that one of the gripes that Titans fans had? That, okay, it's fine, Latham, but that you could have gotten him outside of the top 10, right? And maybe you could have explored a trade back out of the top 10, maybe gotten a third-round pick in the process. But for the Titans, a trade out of the top 10 means picking behind the Jets, who obviously had a need at tackle, who did end up taking a tackle, and they, I guess, didn't want to run that risk. I don't know if the Jets would have taken J.C. Latham, but the Titans like J.C. Latham, and they didn't want to run the risk of him being gone before a potential trade out of the top 10. I feel like it's similar with T'Vondre Sweat. How far back would you have to go before seriously worrying about somebody scooping up Sweat during that run on defensive tackles?
And we don't know the answer to that question, but the counterpoint, Lucas, is you have to have not one guy but 3. You have to have 3 guys that you're prepared to take in that particular situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't get so married on the guy. And you may love him, right? You may love the player. You may think that this is the best possible option for you, but you still have to have the contingency plans in place. Because to your point, I think there were multiple trade scenarios that they could have explored both at 7 and 38. I think what they did at 7 is more forgivable than what they did at 38, based on the way that things broke. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll take your phone calls on the draft coming up next. We will also quickly touch on the Preds' collapse last night at Bridgestone Arena. Just utterly embarrassing with 6.2 seconds left to go and the opportunity to even the series on this Monday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Mortgage professionals in Middle Tennessee. Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, owner of Wesley Mortgage. I'm a true local. Born in Mount Juliet, met my wife at MTSU, and I live in Franklin. While every other mortgage company is cutting back, we're rapidly expanding and investing. Are you sick of feeling like an operations employee to ensure your loans are closed on time? When you look around your office, it doesn't look the same. You're missing people. You're missing your friends. Is anyone having fun? We're having fun every day. As the official mortgage provider of the Tennessee Titans, I've personally recruited the top local operations team to ensure your loans are closed on time. So you get paid, so you get to spend time building your business, and you get to have fun at work again. Now is the time to join our team. To start a confidential conversation with our local president and COO, visit whywesley.com. whywesley.com.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Your reaction to your new 7-man draft class. We'll also get to the Preds here in just a second. A shame that result went the way that it did. Preds now down 3-1 in their series against Vancouver. They head back to Vancouver, and we'll get into Game 5 a little more later. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's start with Kyle in Pulaski this morning. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, guys.
Wait, Kyle. Are you on a lawnmower? Are you on a tractor? What was the heavy machinery that you're operating while calling into this radio station?
Weed eater.
It's a trench digger, man. It's an auger. I'm digging holes in the ground for a garden.
Okay, well, we appreciate you calling in. What you got?
I caught my breath on now. Hey, I like this draft. At first, I was a little bummed. I was like, all right, elite right tackle, maybe a left tackle. But then we got a old big boy to help out Jeff Simmons. I like my big guys, just scary. Darn near Albert Hainsworth. I'll rip your helmet off and kick you in the face with it. I like them a little mean like that. And so Eric Gray, I'm really big on him. I'm surprised everybody else isn't. Yeah, I'm thinking of the Tennessee running back.
That's all right.
Yeah. But, yeah, I like him. He's got I think he has instincts. The tape I've seen, he's diagnosing, he's hitting. I don't know if I know his assignment as well, but he don't remind me of a Rashad Evans or a Monty Rice or anything. But overall, I think it's pretty positive.
Thanks for the call, Kyle, and stay safe out there on the auger. We appreciate it. 615-737-1045. That's multitasking, calling into Sports Talk Radio while digging trenches.
That's right.
So, Brian Callahan also feels the way that Kyle does about the need for big men with a little bit of a nasty streak. This was the head coach on Friday after picking T'Vondre Sweat.
We've added, I don't know, maybe like 700 pounds worth of player, I think, in 2 picks. And, that's on purpose. That's by design. It's a big man's league. And if you need big people to move the line of scrimmage, we wanted to make sure we invested the right players into the fronts. Those are important parts of building a football team, and hard to pass up people that are that size and that playing ability. We think that T'Vondre can be a 3-down player. He's got ability to push the pocket. He's got explosiveness. He can play the run as good as anybody in the class. And the way that the board unfolded, there was a run on the top 2 receivers left got picked, and then there was a bunch of nose tackles that went ripping off the board as well. So you can see it's a premium around the league, and to have players of his caliber inside to pair with Jeffrey is about it. You should have seen Denard and Tracy Rocker. They were smiling from ear to ear to add a player like that to the defense. So hits us right where we needed some size and some strength, and you pair it with Jeffrey, and really two additions in the first 2 days of guys that we think can be high impact players for us.
So that's Brian Callahan on Friday, talking about T'Vondre Sweat in particular, the defensive tackle.
T'Vondre Sweat ran a 5.27 40.
Dude moves.
That is way too fast for a dude coming in at 366.
I mean, you've watched him. Like, you saw him in the national championship, or in the college football playoff this year.
Yeah.
He is ungodly.
He had a touchdown catch last season.
Yeah. No, I mean, he is going to be, if they do this correctly, and, there's no guarantee that they will, but if they do this correctly, this is a pick that has the potential to make them look really smart.
Could you run a 5.27 right now?
A 5.27 right now? I honestly think I could. I think I could.
We have to do this.
What, a 40?
Yes.
Buddy, you, me, Jackson, and Bert, I will crush all of you in the 40.
I think the whole station, the whole lineup should line up and clock 40 times.
Will was a collegiate runner.
He was. I just want to see.
Not speed, distance.
I just want to see how many of us can have a better 40 time than the 366-pound defensive tackle they just drafted out of Texas.
Somebody's for sure pulling a hammy.
Oh, yeah. Someone's going down.
Bert.
I don't know. Bert might surprise us.
No, Bert, no. There's no sneaky athleticism there. Bert's coming. He's getting down in a runner stance, and then he's immediately tearing his ACL. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Omar is in Houston up next.
Guys, I just want to say I will fly all the way from Texas to come watch y'all compete in the 40 times.
I'll win, Omar. It's not even close. I'll win. I'll dust all these fools.
I'm with you, Bud. I'm with you. But guys, look, we can see that the Titans was very aggressive with their picking who they had on their draft board. Doesn't it kind of make you a little excited to see that they were aggressive, wanting to get their guys? Because a lot of times, like when scouts do that or when teams do that, it's something that they see in them. It's kind of like what they did, what Kansas City did with Pat Mahomes. Everybody was like, oh, my gosh, why did they move all the way up to get this guy, I'll hang up, I'll listen and see what you guys think about that.
Well, I appreciate the call, Omar. I'm not going to compare anybody to Pat Mahomes in this draft class. I think that's, I understand what you're saying conceptually, but I just, I don't want to put that name in there with any of these dudes just yet at any of their positions. You can look at it from that perspective, and that's fine. I still do think it's fair to kind of poke holes in the idea that they couldn't have got better value for their picks, for the picks that they had. Because to stick and pick at all 7, it's not like some crime. I'm not fining them, or there's not going to be any kind of punishment for staying put and taking the players. If that's the way that your board fell and you felt good about the value or the offers that you were or were not getting, you don't have to justify it to anybody but yourselves. You just have to have your courage of your conviction and make the decisions and deal with the results thusly. Monty Ossenfort is a tough example to hold up next to Rand Carthon and the way that both managed their draft, even though they weren't armed with the same kind of capital to maneuver. I want to make sure that that's clear, because Monty set himself up for this draft last year. All right. He gave himself that flexibility to do it. The only real issue that I have is with the value of Sweat at 38. I'm fine with Tavondre Sweat. I don't know if they couldn't have got at least another top 100 pick out of it for a roster that has so many needs. I don't think it's like some kind of damning indictment, but I do think it's a fair criticism. Ben is in Alabama up next.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good.
So a couple points from what I saw in the draft. First off, it happens every year, and I don't know why fans get themselves like stuck on a certain guy. Fan big boards don't look like the team big boards do.
Yes.
And I don't know why people haven't realized that yet. And so we don't know what their board looked like. But one thing I like is last guy kind of talked about it. They got their guys. And so I know you talk about value and whatever, but if you trade back and you don't get your guy, then what's the point? And the last thing, don't argue with Bill Callahan. You don't know more about the offensive line than he does. So anyway, I'll hang up.
Are you yelling at me, Ben? I didn't do that.
No. Just in general. I've been seeing it on Twitter and stuff. People's like, I'll pick this guy, trade back and get this guy. If that's Bill Callahan's guy, who am I to say anything different?
We are in agreement there. Thank you for the call. On the whole, it's tough to really take issue with the Latham pick beyond you haven't seen him do it at college. I'm really not that concerned. Jeff Fisher and Coach Mack were in here on Friday with us. They both shrugged their shoulders and said, Bill Callahan's going to figure it out. You're okay. Enough with the hand wringing.
You haven't seen him do it in a game in college.
No, and he's practiced.
Yeah.
Which is something that Rand Carthon brought up. And, of course, famously, he was there at the same time as Evan Neal, who was definitely a top 10 draft pick.
Top 10 pick, yeah.
Top 10 draft pick at left tackle.
Also an IMG Academy guy.
Giants a couple of years ago, who is playing right currently for the New York Giants because of Andrew Thomas being there. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. We will talk about the best and the worst of the NFL draft. Coming up next, Teresa Walker of the Associated Press. She was with me all weekend covering the Titans draft. She was also at Bridgestone Arena last night for that Preds debacle. She will be with us in the second hour as well. Stick around. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The NFL draft is in the books. The Tennessee Titans came away with 7 picks. Offensive tackle J.C. Latham, defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat, linebacker Cedric Gray, cornerback Jarvis Brownlee, wideout Jaquan Jackson, linebacker James Williams, and edge rusher Jalen Harrell. The Titans made 2 UDFA signings out of the University of Tennessee. They are cornerback Gabe Jeudy-Lally and running back Jabari Small, who rushed for over 2,000 yards and 24 touchdowns at UT the last 3 seasons. NFL news this morning, the Cowboys have brought back running back Ezekiel Elliott on a 1-year deal. The 28-year-old spent last year with the Patriots. Speaking of New England, they agreed to a deal with defensive tackle Christian Barmore, a 4-year deal, max value of $92 million, including over $41 million in guaranteed money. And the Nashville Predators had a 3-1 lead with less than 3 minutes to play, but gave up 2 goals. Brock Bozer with a hat trick, scoring with 6 seconds left to force overtime. At 3-3, the Canucks scored early in the OT period to take Game 4 4-3 and a 3-1 series lead. They head back to Vancouver for Game 5 Tuesday night. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Jackson, what the hell? What happened? No, damn it. Explain yourself. I'll talk louder than the music. Explain yourself. The two of you can't pick another time to talk to one another other than the start of the show?
I mean, we like to chat.
I don't care.
What are you complaining about?
I'm complaining about the music.
He's grumpy.
I'm not grumpy. I'm in a great mood. I had a
you
great
don't like
draft
the music?
weekend.
The same music that plays at the top of it. Why are you're just trying to find things to complain about?
For the same reason that you shot him a look out of the corner of your eyes, the same reason that I did. Don't think I didn't see that.
I don't know why you don't just choose joy sometimes. It has to be exhausting to be this crotchety all the time.
Because joy doesn't get anything done. Although my anger doesn't seem to help anything either after 3 years of just screaming into the void. Anyway, welcome in. Second hour underway. Titans have a new draft class. Loud noises. It's what's being lobbed at me in the YouTube chat where you can interact with the show. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can live stream it there. We'd be happy to have your participation. Teresa Walker will help educate us about what happened to the Preds last night and also what she made of Rand Carthon's, we're not calling it his first draft, but he's said he was treating it kind of like his first draft. And so we'll get her estimation of what the Titans did over the course of the weekend in studio here in just a little bit. Couple of different things to take away, however, from the NFL draft before we dive back deep into the Titans. Best and worst from the draft weekend. There's a couple of different ways that we could go with this. The worst thing, though, that I think I saw from the draft weekend was the quarterback evaluation and just kind of speaking to the idea of nobody really knows. You're overdrafting guys all over the place. 6 first-round quarterbacks tied a record high in NFL draft history, and then you don't pick another one. 150 picks into the draft after Bo Nix gets taken. Pick 150 when Spencer Rattler comes off the board. Quarterback evaluation continues to be a total mess. People continue to make a mess of it. People continue to overvalue it. And Broncos fans are probably justifying Sean Payton spending the 12th overall pick on Bo Nix by saying, oh, well, if anybody can get something out of Bo Nix, it's Sean Payton. Well, if anybody could get something out of Russell Wilson, it's Sean Payton. If anybody could get something out of Zach Wilson, it's Sean Payton. When does the madness end? The quarterback evaluation continues to be suspect, and I did not think that teams acquitted themselves well this weekend because of it.
Was there a pick that was taken, and I know this is going right against what you're saying about QB value, quote unquote. We don't know how these guys are going to turn out. But in terms of the conversation around these prospects, was there a pick taken higher than the perceived value than Bo Nix at 12?
On the quarterback evaluation?
Yeah.
Penix.
Yeah, really? So Penix at 8, more surprising to you. Like that is higher than his perceived value than Nix at 12. Because we were talking about Penix as, the best kept secret in the draft. He's going to be a first-round pick.
We weren't. But people apparently were, which is dumb to me, but whatever.
But I don't know that Bo Nix had that sort of draft profile going in of a first-round quarterback prospect. Michael Penix did, and it was surprising to see him go top 10, and it was surprising to see where he went.
Now, evaluators, it seems, would push back on this, but I'm looking at this with an untrained eye, so it's not like I have any kind of perfect evaluation of these guys, but J.J. McCarthy, you can maybe make the argument for, though he did end up sliding further than people were projecting. I think people got too excited about the quarterbacks. But even then, Lucas, the idea of J.J. McCarthy going theoretically as high as people thought he was going to go to, that's another just red flag of quarterback evaluation, or at least the way that we're talking about these guys before we actually see how the draft process plays out. The best from the draft weekend. I mean, I'm a sucker for these stories. You want to talk about Friday fire and making me be positive and asking me to choose joy? Draft weekend makes me choose joy every weekend, or every draft weekend, whether it's Terry and Arnold and the reaction from Lions fans, whether it's the Braden Fisk phone call. Did you see that making the rounds?
Yes, with
this
Jared
weekend.
Verse.
Very, very tear jerker type of stuff. Really cool to see. The best part of draft weekend always is the vibes, because, however it ends up going for these dudes in their professional careers, it's probably never going to feel as good unless you win the Super Bowl as it does on the day that you get drafted into the NFL. I imagine, having never experienced that myself.
I don't know that there were more vibe setters in their post-draft press conferences in terms of prospects than some of these wide receivers meeting with media of their new team. Jackson, can we hear from Bills' second-round draft pick, Keon Coleman, please, meeting with Bills media for the first time?
Nah, man, you forgot I went to school in Michigan for 2 years? Guess where I got this from, though? I'm saying you got to guess. You're going to be wrong, though, but guess. Nah. Macy's. What you mean? They be on sale on the rack, all the colors. Look, $79, $89. Nice little deal. You can get the trench coat for like $100. Nice little. I'll take you there personally. I might go get some more colors. I need a blue one and another red one. I'm with you. There's good things to Excel still. That's what I usually do. See, I ain't know nothing about Thanksgiving. I shop like my mom. I get my coats in the summertime. You gotta shop a season or two before, just in case, and they be cheaper. Cause you go at Thanksgiving, everybody in Thanksgiving, you know what I'm saying? Who we starting with? Oh, we could go. Oh, my bad. Hold up. Y'all can hear me? This on or this off? All right, bro. I'm just making sure I'm hoping you ain't trying to set me up. Who we got going first?
when he hits him with the nice little deal.
The fashion advice, the timing of when to buy your winter jackets. Great stuff from Keon Coleman. Can we hear from Javon Baker as well, the fourth-round pick out of UCF, the wide receiver to the Patriots?
Just come to the home stadium and bring out popcorn. That's all I can tell y'all. Bring your popcorn. I make people in wheelchairs stand up. Bring your popcorn.
I make people in wheelchairs stand up.
Best stuff out of the draft came from the wide receivers, and arguably the most interesting position group in this draft in terms of the way it played out.
Yeah, there's a lot of outspoken personalities in this class, and the Titans got a couple of them, which I'm looking forward to seeing. Hopefully they don't get too whitewashed as far as the commentary goes, and they just continue to have a little bit of personality about them. But yeah, the wide receiver dynamic is going to be fascinating to play out. For me in particular, I think that's the thing that's going to be the most commonplace. Like, I'm not saying that the wide receivers are going to be so great every year that wide receiver classes start to blend together, but it does feel like we're having that wide receiver conversation every year. The amount of offensive linemen that went this year in a league that desperately needs them, and I know there's always line, but it's interesting to see the way that the bottom of the draft has thinned out because of NIL, because of the financial opportunities that present themselves there. You saw how quickly the talent drop-off happened, particularly at some of these positions. Offensive linemen, the volume of them, I don't know that we're going to talk about generational offensive line drafts and stuff like that, but this has the potential to be a pretty special class with some of the high-level prospects that ended up going to a bunch of different places that already have good offensive line situations. And then teams that don't, like the Titans that just needed one.
I feel like the Cowboys took half the linemen in this draft.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Football Fred says, what about the guy who missed the phone call and had bad service? Think he was a Colt, of course. No, in fact, that was one of the Titans draft picks. Didn't he say, I think it was, let me double check my notes here. I want to say Jalen Harrell missed the call initially from Rand Carthon, then called him back, had bad connection, and Rand told him he needed to get off that Metro PCS and get Verizon.
Well, hopefully that rookie deal gets that done for him.
We'll get you a real phone plan, bud. We'll get it straightened out. The number is there if you want to jump in. Let's go to Ryan in Murfreesboro next.
What's up, Buck?
Yo.
So here's the thing with Tavondre. So I was listening to his post-draft interview, and he was talking about how if he loses 355 pounds, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
No, if he gets to 355, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, not if he loses 355.
Yeah.
He's not 700 pounds. There's two of them that come together are 700 pounds, not the one.
Right. So here's the thing, man. The thing with the Titans fan base is, man, they could select Joe Biden, and they would pile on their support. You know, they would say, man, he's slow and he's 90 years old, but he's got great potential. And that's the thing with this fan base. Like, if we don't remember back too long ago, we selected Pac-Man Jones. And in the beginning, there were the red flags, but everybody was like, hey, man, you gotta trust, the team and the coaches. And they vetted the guy. And then all of a sudden, all these problems started happening. And then the fan base turned on him and said, oh, you're going to stand by this pick. But the narrative changed. And now it's the dumbest move of all time. So I'm just saying, if you're a fan and you're going to stand by this pick, then stand by it. But you can't jump off of it and talk about how dumb it was when all the red flags are right there right now. That's where I'm coming from, and I'll hang up and listen to your call.
Thank you for the call, Ryan. I appreciate it. You don't have to. That's the fun of being a fan. Like, nobody's going to nail you down that way. I mean, your buddies might. If you had a strong position about one of these guys and you've been, talking draft with do people still gather at water coolers? I feel like I've done this bit before. I don't know that I've ever seen people physically talking to one another at a water cooler. But where
we got one in the break room.
Yeah, we can meet there later after the show.
I don't want to do that. I'm okay. We're here right now together. I don't need to see you outside at the water cooler afterwards either.
Where else are we supposed to powwow?
Powwow. What are you, 90? Anyway, point being, you can take whatever position you want at any given point as a fan, because that's, the beauty of being a fan. You say whatever you want to, and there's no real repercussions unless you say something nasty and send death threats or whatever the case may be, and you do some of the uglier stuff. There is, similarly, not a ton of accountability in media. So I also identify with that because I feel like a lot of people take strong positions and then, when it's convenient for them, try to backpedal or walk them back or whatever the case may be, or couch them after new information becomes available, instead of just saying, yeah, I got it wrong, and the new information that's become available has proven me wrong, and now, whomever has to deal with the consequences of whatever that decision was. All right. Teresa Walker, going to be in studio. She was with me for the draft process. She was also covering the Preds Game 4. Unfortunate result at Bridgestone Arena last night. She'll be in studio coming up next. You can't wear her down. Teresa Walker, the Associated Press. She's covering all the things all the time, trying to make time for herself at some point throughout the course of her very, very busy work schedule. But she has been kind enough to come in studio with us. You can follow her on Twitter at T Walker AP.
Teresa M. Walker.
Teresa M. Walker on Twitter is where you can follow her. Of course, exhaustive coverage of all things Titans draft, Preds, everything local in the state of Tennessee. She's got you covered. How you doing, T?
I'm tired. I've already had 3 cups of coffee. I'm probably going to pick up a mocha latte on my way home because I've got to go grocery shopping. My family's like, we need food.
What are you, Dan Campbell this week? You're just taking 2 venti red eyes to the dome?
Are you kidding? I do an average of 6 cups of coffee a day. It's just the nighttime coffee's decaf. So it's like, I need a lot. I oversee the entire state of Tennessee for the Associated Press.
Absolutely. So before we talk Titans draft, we need to talk about the event that you were covering last night in Bridgestone Arena. Game 4, Preds have a 3-1 lead. All of a sudden, Preds lose 4-3 in the overtime. What the hell?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, it's like, for the Titans, rookie quarterbacks have been their Achilles heel. For the Predators, it's
rookie quarterbacks.
Exactly, facing rookie quarterbacks. Ryan Leaf got one of his very rare NFL wins against the Tennessee Oilers in '98, and it's a tradition that lives on. For the Predators, it's facing backup goalies, and
the third string goalies.
They took it to a new extreme last night. I mean, Arturs Silovs, however you say his name, this is a guy who, I mean, they were down to their 3rd goalie, and strangely, Vancouver had done this before back in 2004. So their first 3 wins in this series have come by different goalies, and they're the only other team to do that in the NHL in a playoff series. It's just a little ridiculous, but I'm sorry, you've gotten puck luck with the puck going off of Philip Forsberg's skate. You're up 3-1. Build a wall when they pull the goalie for the extra attacker. I mean, just don't give up, not 1, but 2 5-on-6 goals. It's that simple. And, somehow Brock Boeser is able to find some space and tie it up with 8 seconds is what was on the play sheet. I saw 6.2 on the clock. Come on, build a wall. I know that there's some criticism of UC Saros being a little short. Build a wall around that net. Don't let a puck through. Sometimes hockey can be simple. Don't chase the puck.
Well, then it just keeps happening the same way, I guess, is the disappointing thing, right? Like you have these leads, and then all of a sudden you take it to the overtime, and you can't handle it in the overtime, and all of a sudden just how quickly they end up losing in the overtime turnaround is the thing that frustrates you even more.
Over on the power play once again.
Oh, God, what are they now? 1 of 15 or something in this series?
It's 13 or 14 straight without a goal. They scored on the first one, correct, of the series? And haven't since.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like they're not taking advantage of the chances when they've got a man advantage. Of course, they went 0 of 9 during the regular season against the Canucks with the man advantage. So this has been a theme. But in overtime, it felt like that. I felt like I've seen a lot of Pee-wee hockey memories have flashed up through this series. There were so many Predators over there chasing the puck. Guys, keep somebody near Saros. You're supposed to have somebody there helping keep it clear in front of the net. And the picture I saw, it's like, what is this? And it's like, I saw that when my son played Pee-wee hockey a lot. It's kids chasing the puck or the soccer ball. And it's like they just forgot their assignments, it felt like. And here's the thing. The Predators, I thought the high water mark would be, could they get in the playoffs? Could they win a game? They've done that. Mm-hmm. The problem is they are at a point where this could easily be a 3-1 Predators lead. And they have announced the Vezina finalists today. Thatcher Demko is one of them. And he's out. And you're faced not 1 but 2 backup goalies. And the guy last night was making his playoff debut. And you couldn't get more pucks in the net on him? Excuse me. I mean, they're going to be kicking themselves all off season.
No, absolutely. And you hope that the Pee-wee Preds learn from their mistakes and try and improve themselves for those of them that did not have the playoff experience that they're now getting.
Pee-wee Preds.
I know that felt a bit dismissive.
That was a little disrespectful.
Well, I mean,
Teresa said it first.
Yes, I did.
It does feel hard to come back from this, right? The meltdown to go down 3-1 and then have to go back to the Pacific Northwest. So if the season does end Tuesday, How do we remember year one of Andrew Brunette? Like, very streaky, right? Very high highs, very low lows. So when we kind of take a step back and look at it, how are we going to look at year one of this era?
They reached the high water mark of what was possible. I mean, they had to install a system. They had, they made some changes. Barry made some moves before the trade deadline, moves that have clicked. I mean, Beauvillier and Zucker made some impressions in this series, so they paid off a bit. But, the problem is there was just too much of a cleanup job left for Barry Trotz to deal with and to fix in one off season. He's done a lot of moves, and they just need more time. They need another off season. I'm very curious to see if UC Saros is traded this offseason. I would. I think there's I would. I'm sorry, but Yaroslav Askarov is sitting there waiting to come in net, and he's a big, tall guy.
You don't have to apologize to you. If that's the move, that's the move.
That's the move. And communicating with one of my hockey colleagues, Stephen Wino, I'd trade Saros and see if you can get Mitch Marner from Toronto and bring him over here and make some moves. But I do think that there's more moves to be made and some more fixes to be. This roster has to be improved some more. I think Andrew Brunette squeezed as much out of it. Now, post game, he was as calm. He's like, I've been here before as a player. So if he can feed that through, and they have played great stretches of hockey at times, they just haven't finished some things. So, and this is a series that a lot of people were saying would go 7. So maybe they surprise us and force this back to a game 6. So let's just see. I just know the Canucks really do not want to come back here again. Don't blame them.
No, it looked like an electric atmosphere, and it's a shame that it was squandered last night. The Preds lose in the overtime 4-3 to the Vancouver Canucks. The series goes back to Vancouver, as Teresa mentioned, to see if Nashville can't try and force a game 6, which would be on Friday, this coming Friday, May the 3rd. Teresa Walker's in studio. She's hanging out here with us. She not only covered the Preds game 4 last night, she was with me for the bulk of the draft throughout the course of the weekend. Teresa, 7 players, 5 defense, 2 offense. If I give you one word to describe the 2024 crop of rookies, what would you use?
Oh, that's a good question. Just one word: aggressive.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it, between Sweat mowing people down and J.C. Latham just pancaking guys, and then their last pick, the kid from Miami. I mean, he can go from 0 to 120, and I mean, he can be 5 feet away from a guy and just pop him in the next week.
He's a pterodactyl.
I mean, that watching, Gentry Estes pulled up that video on his laptop, and I'm watching, and it's like, ooh, I like the hits that this kid can lay. So I think that they got aggressive players, and I think they also got some speed, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this new coaching staff can do with these players. And I'm just going to say this for all the people panicking about J.C. Latham playing right tackle at Alabama. I'm going to trust Bill Callahan. Okay. And I'm going to trust that they have I mean, think about it. New center, Peter Skoronsky at left guard. Now you've got J.C. Latham ideally plugging in at left tackle. That was their biggest issue as an offense last year, was that offensive line giving up 64 sacks, and they have taken, ideally, hopefully, a big step toward fixing that.
They draft Devondre Sweat in the second round. We've talked about it. He gets the DWI this month. His first visit after the arrest is the Titans. They say they go through a thorough vetting process with him beyond just the 30 visit that he made here. As they explained to us, the contingent that they took down to his hometown in Texas to be able to go meet with him. And then Brian Callahan, this clip from a couple of weeks ago, Lucas happened to recall the idea of meeting guys with off-field issues prior to them taking Devondre Sweat.
You find out what it is that is considered a character concern. There's, I think a lot of these guys are 19, 20, and 21-year-old kids. I think about a lot of the things that I did when I was that age, and I don't know that people would have, not that they were bad things, but yeah, I like to be around my buddies and go out and go to a party and do those. I mean, those are all things that these guys do, and sometimes they get unfairly knocked for some of those things. And some of them have real life issues that they're working through, that have real difficulties in their home lives growing up, and those are things that they have to work through themselves, that are part of the equation. But I think you have to really make sure you're judging the kids on the right things. And doing the homework on the background and making sure that you're not making any assumptions about what a college coach told you about it when the scout went in November to visit. So you really do your homework and making sure that if a character issue is considered a real character issue that that we don't want to absorb into our locker room, that we know that it's legitimate and one that we're not going to take a risk on, or maybe it isn't that, and the perception is that there's issues with somebody and there are things that we've worked through and feel comfortable with. So that's what this process is for. And that's why we spend the time that we do with all these players and the 30 visits and on the Zoom interviews. And there's a ton of time invested into making sure that we get whatever those issues might be ironed out. And whether they're real issues that have to be dealt with or they're things that maybe aren't as detrimental as the perception might be.
So that's Brian Callahan a couple of weeks before the draft talking about the process that they use to vet players. They ultimately take T'Vondre Sweat, who has some of the red flags around him, both with his weight and his decision-making off the field with that DWI arrest. Teresa, your initial reaction to the Sweat pick, did you take any issue with it?
No, and it's so ironic. As soon as I saw that his first visit after bonding out on the DWI was to Tennessee, it just kind of felt, it's like, okay, why do I think they're going to take this guy? But then you watch the tape, and they explained. They went and talked to him, and they did their due diligence. The last time they did that with a player, it was Jeffrey Simmons. That worked out pretty well for them, right? Obviously, different situation because this arrest was literally a couple of weeks ago. And he, as soon as he bonded out, like on a Sunday, then he was on a plane to Nashville to visit with the Titans. So they've met with him here. They went to his hometown, talked to the family. So they've done the due diligence. Now the problem is, the challenge is he has to do his part and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And in the building, there's reminders of ride shares. It's like getting a car ride to get you home in this town is not a problem, hasn't been a problem for a very long time. And I say that as somebody who covered Steve McNair's arrest for drunk driving here in town. So, it should not be a problem again. The weight, that's going to be the fun thing, is how much does he get that under control? He says that he can be a Hall of Famer if he loses 15 pounds. Shows, boy. You're a big man. If you can lean up a little bit, and they have a nutritionist on staff over there at what do they call it now? St. Thomas
Ascension.
Ascension. Oh God, I can't keep track. It used to be Baptist once upon a time.
You've done it long enough, T. I feel like you're allowed to screw up the name of the facility. It's all right. There's been a couple of sponsors since.
It should be the Teresa Walker Titans facility.
We'll just call it the Teresa Walker press room, media workroom.
She gets the whole workroom, does she?
Who's the media member you were most relieved to not have to spend time with Sunday? Like that you just woke up and said,
Papaharsky?
I don't have to. I was hoping you'd say Buck.
Well, Buck's a close second. He was sitting over there in the corner and taking chances and taking pictures, and so I'll just give a shout out.
No, not taking pictures. I'm taking videos of every time they drop a tray of food. It's like pigs and slop, okay? Media and free food. Every time that the kind people that work in the Titans kitchen staff would bring us in free food to keep us supplied in those 3 days together.
And we're grateful for that.
Yes, we are very grateful. Shout out, Chris. The rush of not you, because you don't eat those kind of desserts anymore, but the way that people flock to the cookies and the Martin's barbecue wings and the Chick-fil-A biscuits and the what do we have? Nothing Bundt cakes, all these different things. Rabid animals, all right? You'd think that media people have never eaten a meal before in their lives, and it was fun to document Rex Rhodes shoving a cookie in his face with disheveled hair, yelling, "It's my first one!"
That was hilarious. And
you're welcome.
And PK's, I wish we'd clocked him on getting from his chair to the Nothing Bundt cupcakes. Because
they're moving fast. I don't think I've ever seen him move that fast.
He was moving very fast. So, in my defense, I moved really fast when they brought in the Martins because I was hungry and because I'd worked the night before, hadn't had a chance to eat breakfast, and I couldn't eat the Chick-fil-A biscuits. So that potato salad was very good.
She doesn't get off the hook here. All right, Teresa.
I loaded my plate that day.
No. I'm not talking about food. Okay. This is we spend too much time together over the course of draft weekend as Titans media.
It's a lot of time together in that small room.
It's a bonding experience. It's like summer camp in 3 days. You ever go to summer camp and you come away with some people, you're like, I could hang out with that person for the rest of my life. And other people, I hope I never see that mother blipper
again. I want
to
kill them, yes.
Yeah, there's all the vibes. By the time we emerge and see daylight at St. Thomas Sports Park well, it's not even daylight because it was damn near 9 p.m. by the time we got out of there on Saturday this year.
Nearly 10.
So rank us in terms of annoyance because Teresa, honestly, is at the top of the list. I love you to death, but you're an out loud reader, and that's not always the best for 3 days together.
I'm trying to stay awake, okay?
No, okay,
Part
but
of
the rest of us, it's like...
Wait, hold on. An out loud reader. Like, what does that mean? That just everything you read?
I share, Lucas, when I see interesting things. And, David Beauclair, who used to be in there, if somebody had already called it out before, he'd yell still to point out that it had been pointed out. And yes.
Bo also would yell, shut the bleep up, but I can't say that on FCC Safe Radio.
Now, I will say that I got a text on one of the last couple mornings saying, no, I was not the loudest in the media workroom. So I'll just defend myself there. Other people were louder. And we've got more people in there. It was a packed room this weekend.
The space got smaller and we grew as a media corps,
so
it feels like.
Obviously you did not enjoy spending time with Buck and company.
That's not true.
I do like Buck.
Teresa and I enjoy. Teresa is basically the person who's basically taught me how, or at least tried to teach me how to do my job professionally over the course of the last 9 years. Me and T get along fine.
Who is the prospect you did enjoy speaking the most with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think it was Sweat, honestly.
I missed that because I was at Game 3, and I'm looking forward to that one. The kid who was roommates at Tulane with
Jaquan Jackson.
Thank you.
The receiver.
With Tyjae Spears. I mean, because they were there together, and the joy and just the happiness. I mean, he's got a friendly face in the locker room. He's got a place he can bunk with, and this is a kid who he sounds ready. I mean, he was walking around, and then there was the cornerback who was pacing around the room with mom in the corner, FaceTiming us, and
Jarvis Brownlee.
Yes, and it's like, boy, these guys were ready. They had been waiting for that call, and when you're getting the call on day 3, you're so anxious because it's like you've seen the projections. It's like, ooh, I thought I was going to be a day 2 guy, and it's like, ooh, it's getting later and later and later, and the anxiousness just builds up. And then for the last guy taken, the Miami kid, his dad played 8 years in the league, so it's like he should have. A lot of these guys have ties, family ties to the league, and J.C. Latham is related to Deacon Jones, for God's sake, on his mama's side. So I don't, and let's not go do DNA testing and find out it's just a, family story. So it's just.
Don't bog it down with facts.
Exactly.
Get out of here with your 23andMe.
Stick with the legend. Print the legend. Don't go with the facts.
Well, that Reed connection is
that's from the Associated Press. State of Tennessee. What is your official title?
State sports editor for the Associated Press in Tennessee.
Go with the legend, not the facts, says Teresa. Teresa Walker hanging out in studio with us, kind as always, to share her time. Teresa, what are you working? I know today is a day to recoup and do actual human tasks and
some hockey.
Try to regain some humanity. But what else do you have going today that people can look for at AP.com?
I'm contributing to a goalie hockey story. Shocking, I know. And our face-off fixture previewing tomorrow night's games, and hopefully getting a little bit of rest, but and also prepping for the Olympics. I spent a lot of time on Thursday and Saturday doing that because I'm going to Paris for my 7th Olympics. Little personal shout out. And it never ends.
That's okay. It's good for business. Teresa Walker always keeping us informed, keeping us in line, keeping us awake with her out loud reading. We appreciate you, T.
Thank you. And yes, I am loud. I'm proud. I'm here. Deal with it.
That's why she's the queen. Coming up next, your phone calls. We will also continue to react to our favorite picks of the Titans draft and our least favorite picks of the Titans draft. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Two Rivers Ford is the South's most trusted Ford dealer for a reason. They've been operating here in Middle Tennessee for over 40 years. It is a testament to the award-winning customer service that they have offered Middle Tennesseans and their non-commissioned sales experts, which never put pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying process. They're getting a paycheck whether they sell you a car that day or not, so they always make the car buying process at Two Rivers fast, easy, and fun. All their new non-specialty Fords are sold below MSRP, so they always put you in position with the best value. It is the best experience at Two Rivers Ford. That's why they're the South's most trusted Ford dealer. It's the reason that DeAndre Hopkins, Coach Dave McGinnis, Dawn Davenport, Ramon Foster, even me, are customers at Two Rivers Ford. Quality American-made Ford vehicles and that award-winning customer service that you just can't get anywhere else. Two Rivers Ford, 7 miles east of BNA, or online at tworiversford.com. You got questions? We got phone lines. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Some of y'all been waiting patiently. Talk Preds, talk draft. We got both. Preds Game 5, a big one, a critical one. Feels like a tough spot for them to be able to try and rebound, but season on the line. We'll see what happens. Titans rookie minicamp, no date officially set, though it does seem like not this coming weekend, but the following weekend is when they will get these guys back in the building. I assume they'll have a tryout period as well. They'll have a local rookie minicamp, as is typically the case. Should be an interesting dynamic with a lot of the UDFAs who are coming in. We haven't gotten to those guys yet. Maybe we'll cover that ground throughout the course of the week. Ricky in Nashville has been waiting patiently. Hey, Ricky.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Great.
I have a couple of points I hope I can make, and then I'll shut up and listen to your response. First, Andrew Burnett fired after a 58-18 record in Florida because his team choked against a weaker Lightning team. Rumor coming out of Florida was he was not a motivational coach, not a playoff big game guy. That was the first point. Second one, I watched a game the other night with some former NHL players, and two of them happened to be defensemen, and they were screaming at the TV when the puck went down low with basically 5 seconds left in the game. They were yelling to just basically tackle, rip the stick out, slash, anything you needed to do down low to keep a player away from the net. And their theory on this was, take a penalty with 5 seconds left, you stop the clock, you still have a 1-goal lead, and if they score, you're going overtime anyway. It kind of looked like they were so frazzled that they kind of forgot what they were doing out there because they were leaving their feet. If you watch the goal, two of the players are laying on their backs in front of the net and took themselves out of the play. And my third quick point was this has to be Barry Trotz's worst nightmare if they lose in the first round of this playoffs after not giving up the assets at the trade deadline that could have restocked this team for the next couple years.
Thanks for the call, Ricky. The Oscars music means 60 seconds on the clock. We keep them moving around here. I appreciate it. So points all well made. Points that Teresa Walker also brought up, the just kind of pee-wee hockey look. Not really sure what their assignments were in the waning seconds and the waning minutes. Desperation, frazzled, I believe is what the caller called them. All fair criticisms of the lack of just bodies in front of UC Saros to make sure that lead is protected. It just makes that, and I don't want to, was it Colton Sissons that had it go off the post on the empty netter?
Yep.
That one just haunts you, and it's not, I mean, it's just right there, right? And that's the kind of puck luck stuff that you can't have fall the wrong way when the margin for error is that thin. But even then, 3-1, you're thinking gravy. You're just trying to put a nail in the coffin, and then all of a sudden the unthinkable happens and they turn around and win it.
Yeah, and you look at all these things in hindsight and you wonder if Sissons could have skated closer to the goal to have a better opportunity at it, but inches away from sealing it there, and just a lack of composure. Just like game one, right? Andrew Burnett said, we got back to doing things that let us down early in the season when the Canucks scored 2 goals in 12 seconds, and the Preds kind of fell apart. Assignments went by the wayside. That's what happened when Bozer scored his second goal. Suddenly it's a 1-goal game, and all the pressure is on you after controlling most of the game since you tied it up at 1-1 early on, and the Preds just collapsed, absolutely collapsed. It's hard to imagine coming back from this. Maybe they go to Vancouver. I mean, they've had good performances these last 2 games. That's what's frustrating. They've outshot Vancouver. On Friday, the roles were totally reversed from the first 2 games. Preds were the better team. Preds outshot the Canucks. They tested them more time in the O-zone. They just couldn't put the puck in the back of the net until it was too late, and they lose, which is kind of how the Preds stole one away in Vancouver. So all is not lost. It'll probably be a good game tomorrow. They could send it back to Nashville, but it's hard to imagine bouncing back from that kind of collapse.
John is in Florida up next. Hey, John.
Hey, Buck, first-time caller. I just wanted to let you know my favorite draft picks, the first 2 draft picks, are my favorite ones because no one looks like those guys off the bus, number one, and to move with that speed. Number 2 is the general narrative, just kind of with the national media, local media, and Titan fans, is that the Titans, they stretch. They stretch their picks. They reach. They reached for their picks, and I don't agree with that because the defensive tackle that went before us, the Falcons, he was supposed to go in the 3rd, 4th round according to multiple mock drafts, and then Joe Alt getting changed to the right tackle position. No one's really going crazy about that because Jim Harbaugh is Jim Harbaugh, right? So that's all I have to say. Something to think about. That's all. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you for the call. Hope you have a great day, John. So with that, I wouldn't base the judgments of the Sweat pick off what the Falcons did. Let's start there with Rook, whose name is pronounced how, Lucas? Yes, that. Spot on. Nailed it.
I'm an idiot, and I was wrong.
Honestly, I think he might have been closer with that one than he was with the other 3 earlier.
But I think the point is, that's kind of the point you get to in the draft, where it's just about a team's evaluation of a player, where our perception of what that player's value is kind of starts to go out the window because teams are looking more for fit versus what they need.
I don't care what people have to say about reaching. You know what I'm saying? The thing that I care about, if whomever, who's a pundit that we have on the radio show on a regular basis, Diana. If Diana gets on the Athletics football show and says, the Titans reached at every pick that they took, and I'm just hypothetical here. I don't really care, not because I don't respect her opinion, and not because she's not very well informed and talks to people, but everybody's draft board is going to have variances. Some of the things will be the same, but to Lucas's point, you don't know how teams have these respective guys stacked, which could, in theory, then start a run on defensive tackles, which could see Sweat going further or going higher than you might have otherwise imagined a potential slide. The issue that I have is with the lack of value on trade assets and potential opportunities that arose. That is really the only quibble that I could possibly have with the Titans draft. I don't have a problem with the players that they picked. They're all positions of need. Titans have needs all over the place. I think that 7 is forgivable with J.C. Latham. I think that he, we'll see what happens with him as a player. But I'm not as bent out of shape about that as some of you were on, what was that, Thursday night. Friday, the Sweat thing, I have more questions about it, and I've heard it explained to me both Rand Carthon this morning, speaking with Ramon, Kayla, and Will, saying that he did get calls from other teams saying that if they hadn't have taken Sweat, another team would have taken them right afterwards.
Said, you got our guy.
Right, got our guy. And I've gotten texts from people within the organization about value that Rand Carthon could have got that would have made a lot of sense for that particular Sweat pick. So there's a lot there to kind of parse through. Ultimately, you're armchair GMing after the fact with the results already in hand. And, anybody assigning reach or draft grades, it's all the same kind of thing to me. I don't really care. It's subjective. Final hour is coming up next. 615-737-1045 is the number. Who was your favorite draft pick of the Titans class? Who was your least favorite pick? We'll talk about that and get to roster holes still yet to be filled. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The Tennessee Titans NFL draft is in the books. They came away with 7 selections. Offensive tackle J.C. Latham, defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat, linebacker Cedric Gray, cornerback Jarvis Brownlee, wide receiver Jaquan Jackson, linebacker James Williams, and edge rusher Jalen Harrell. In NFL news this morning, the Dallas Cowboys have brought back Ezekiel Elliott on a 1-year deal. The 28-year-old spent last season with the New England Patriots. The Patriots and defensive tackle Christian Barmore reached an agreement on a 4-year deal with max value of $92 million, including over $41 million guaranteed. Also, the Jacksonville Jaguars reportedly have picked up the 5th-year option on quarterback Trevor Lawrence. The Nashville Predators had a 3-1 lead with less than 3 minutes to play. They gave up 2 goals, including one with 6 seconds remaining. Brock Boser with a hat trick in regulation. The Preds fell in overtime to the Canucks at home 4-3. The Canucks take a 3-1 series lead, and they head back to Vancouver for Game 5 Tuesday night. The Preds will face elimination. Transfer portal news, Tennessee basketball picking up 6'10" Charlotte transfer Igor Milicic Jr., who averaged almost 13 points and 8.5 rebounds per game last season. Also, former Tennessee forward Tobe Awaka is headed to Arizona, and Tennessee cornerback Christian Conyers reportedly is entering the transfer portal. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Titans have a draft class in place. Preds fall 4-3 last night at Bridgestone Arena. The final hour is upon us. We're here to talk about it all. Welcome in. Happy to have you. 615-737-1045. Lucas Jackson, the whole squad. F&M Bank Chats, where you can live stream the show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Leave us a like on the YouTube channel if you're so inclined. We always appreciate it. Get to your phone calls here in just a second, because the question that we asked you before we went to break is, of the 7 picks that the Titans have made, and I'll recap them for you just now. J.C. Latham, the tackle out of Alabama, nose tackle T'Vondre Sweat of Texas, North Carolina off-ball linebacker Cedric Gray, cornerback Jarvis Brownlee Jr. from Louisville, Jaquan Jackson, wide receiver of Tulane, James Williams, who played safety but will be a linebacker. He played at Miami, and Jalen Harrell, the Michigan outside linebacker / edge. Which is your favorite pick from the 2024 class, and which is your least favorite pick? Now, Lucas wants to play a different game than I initially thought of, because you'd like to broaden this theme a little bit, yes?
Yeah, I think so. Rather than just picking up one player you like and maybe one you don't like, one aspect of the Titans draft that you like the most and one that you don't like. Like one thing about the draft, and that can branch out into how it affects the roster, what they have currently, what they don't have. As you'd say, what percentage of roster construction is complete at this point after those first waves of free agency in the draft? You can make signings. There's veteran free agents out there, UDFAs, all of those things.
Yeah,
but
you probably got about 80% of your roster construction pre-training camp done.
Right. So I think a discussion about the totality of the roster at the moment as it pertains to what you did in the draft. What's your favorite thing about what they accomplished and your least favorite thing?
So we spoke with Rand Carthon and Anthony Robinson. Brian Callahan wasn't with us on Saturday to recap. I think he was helping work through the UDFA process at the time, or he could have been doing something completely different. All I know is they were currently grinding it out on the phones with the UDFAs when Rand and Anthony met with us. And to recap the draft in total on Saturday, this was the Titans GM.
Long day. A lot of picks, a lot of names called, a lot of stuff to work through, but we made it through, and then just left the trading room floor, downstairs getting the, as we started the undrafted process. So went over, pretty smooth. I feel really good about the draft class and what these guys are going to be able to come in and do. I think we have some guys that are come in and compete to start, and I think we have some guys that are come in and compete for spots and, make us a team with some depth. And, know there's still some holes to fill, and we're going to get to it. left some open roster spots instead of filling it up with, just all college free agents. We want to be able to have some flexibility to sign some vets and not have to just cut people. But looking forward to it.
So that's Rand Carthon on Saturday. And you need probably at least 3, potentially 4 of these guys to have an immediate impact. Certainly J.C. Latham, whether that's left tackle, you hope in an ideal world, or right tackle if that doesn't go to plan. T'Vondre Sweat has a lot of scrutiny on him right out of the gate. He's going to have a lot of pressure on him. He's going to have a lot of eyes and ears and just general attentiveness to his daily goings on. He's going to be asked multiple times how much he weighs on a regular basis, currently listed at 6'4", 366. He says if he can get to 355, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Easier said than done, because as Brian Callahan says, he's a big man with big man problems, and it's very expensive if you don't make weight that they come up for you based on the strength and conditioning plan. It's a lot of pressure on the new strength and conditioning staff to maximize guys like T'Vondre Sweat, who have conditioning, I don't want to say conditioning issues because he seems to be in fine condition, but if they're looking at him as a 3-down player, then they're going to have to get him in significantly better shape. Cedric Gray is another one that could benefit from an NFL strength and conditioning program. He's a 3-year starter at North Carolina. He's going to be in competition to be able to run this defense right away, wearing the coach-to-player communication device in the helmet, the green dot, as they call it. I'm sure Callahan and Rand are tired of being asked about green dot anything at this point because it seems to come up in every press conference that we have with them, but understandably so. And then the rest are depth and teams guys, and Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Jaquan Jackson, James Williams, and Jalen Harrell, though Jaquan Jackson probably is going to push Kyle Phillips or Nick Westbrook-Akina or whomever is the starting. Who's the starting 3 wide receivers? And I know training camp has to happen first and rookie minicamp and all these things. If they open up in a 3 wide receiver set on week 1 of the 2024 NFL season, we'll go around the room. I'll start with Jackson. Who are the starting 3 wide receivers?
Ridley, Hopkins.
And?
I'm a Burks guy, so I'll go Burks.
Why? Wait, okay. Explain yourself why you're a Burks guy.
I've liked him since he was at Arkansas. I always thought he was a solid prospect.
Okay, but since he's been to the Titans, he's a better player at Arkansas. Yeah, okay.
But I'm still going to give him, I'm going to say he's the number 3.
Okay.
Jackson, a Burks believer. I would go same except NWI right now.
I'm with you.
As 3.
Because Burks has to make it through training camp, Jackson.
Yeah.
And that historically has not gone well. So if we're talking about week 1 starters, I'm going to play the percentages. It's probably unfair of me. I'm probably stigmatizing the guy. I don't think that's an unfair thing for Titans fans to do. Look around and say, talking about availability, who's always there? Who's the Walking Dead? Who's the zombie apocalypse couldn't take him out? It's NWI, baby. NWI and Mason Kinsey until the end of time.
Sean on the F&M Bank chat says his favorite thing about the Titans draft is big, powerful men. His least favorite thing is that they did not end up getting one of the many top wide receivers.
And there was some discussion about really there was one wide receiver in particular, though many of you wanted them to take Jerry Rice's kid for reasons that were beyond me. I did not think that was a viable option.
Yeah.
Nor did the league, given how much further he fell. I did not understand the obsession other than he's Jerry Rice's kid.
You crunched the tape on him?
Well, yeah, we talked about it with Greg. And we looked at a variety of different players at that position. For example, Malik Washington, who I would have absolutely advocated for over Jaquan Jackson. But he was also somebody who dropped further than expected, though he is also undersized at 5'9", though he carries himself. All these guys carry the weight and the strength differently. Malik Washington, I personally would have liked him better. Doesn't mean that's what their draft board looked like at all. That's just a subjective opinion from me. So I think you could probably have that discussion at basically every day 3 pick that they made.
What was your favorite and least favorite aspect of their draft?
Favorite is that this is the kind of foundational draft that they needed for a roster that doesn't have a foundation. I mean, doesn't really have a foundation. Doesn't have a foundation that you can definitively kind of continue to work off of. Spears and Levis and Skoronski are nice. Hopkins is not a foundational piece because, as of right now, his time with the Titans is done after this upcoming season. Calvin Ridley is more of that because he's on a 4-year deal, but he's longer in the tooth for your average wide receiver on a second contract like that. It's not technically a second contract, but you understand what I mean.
Least favorite.
Least favorite. I keep coming back to the T'Vondre Sweat thing just because of the trade options that were there. And I don't know all the trade options and I don't know all the draft capital. And I'm not in their war room, but I've talked to people that were in the facility and in the room when they're making the picks and things like that. I don't dislike the player. I just think that you didn't need to take him at 38 and that options were available to. I know options were available to them that I would have found viable.
So those options to you outweigh having T'Vondre Sweat on your roster. Like you're saying you don't like T'Vondre Sweat enough to pass up getting more picks out of that 38 spot.
Not so much more than the next player, right?
Yeah, and obviously they did.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. And that's, again, this is subjective opinion from me. It's easy for me to sit back here with the results in hand and armchair GM. But for me, it's just knowing that there were other options available, knowing some of the value that they were being offered and knowing that they declined it anyway. For T'Vondre Sweat, I just don't like the idea. It doesn't mean that this is going to become a trend or anything like that. I just don't like the idea of being so married to one guy that you can't consider possibilities for three different guys when it's not that big of a drop-off where you were at that point in the defensive tackle that was defensive interior talent that was still available to you.
Richie on the FNM Bank chat says, Sweat was a reach. You're not lying, Buck. They didn't have a third, so if there was a guy that they loved that arguably they could have gotten a little further down, then it could be called a reach. But that plays into my favorite thing about it, because my favorite thing is getting Jeffrey Simmons, a day two guy to slide in there, a young player that Jeffrey has never had before. Big Jeff has never had a guy to come in next to him, a high-profile prospect that is drafted with a high pick to play next to Jeffrey Simmons. Who has Jeffrey Simmons played next to? Veteran free agent additions, for the most part, right?
Well,
Jarrell, yeah, when Jeff was a rookie. But since then, the likes of DeMarcus Walker and the Mario Williams of the world, and obviously Danico Autry, this is the first time that Jeff is going to be tasked with kind of taking T'Vondre Sweat under his wing. And it's not like a mentor gate thing, right? Where Jeff's success is directly related to Sweat's success and vice versa. Like Jeff needs T'Vondre Sweat to be a productive player, to eat up space on the defensive line. So I will not be surprised if Jeff takes an investment in T'Vondre Sweat, who, like Jeff, came out of the draft with some red flags around him, right? That were a big part of the pre-draft discussion. Like it or not, that was the case with Jeff.
Sure.
Was also the case with T'Vondre.
It was a high school thing for Jeff.
Sure, but Jeff can relate to that. Their success is tied together, right? So that's my favorite thing about it, is that investment in a player to come in and play next to Jeff, for him to kind of take under his wing in that way, which has not happened yet since Jeff was drafted.
Tart was the year after. He was a COVID UDFA.
Yep, UDFA.
And they're more peers than this situation where Jeff is clearly and obviously, second contract, one of the highest paid defensive linemen in the league, not just in the room. Somebody who Sweat looks up to. And again, I know it's not probably the most significant signing on the Titans roster to a lot of Titans fans, but Coburn, the defensive tackle formerly of Texas, has a long relationship with Sweat and somebody who he spoke about. So again, they're trying to create an environment that will best put this player in position to succeed. They may be proven very, very right on it. We'll wait to see. We'll get more of your phone calls coming up next. 615-737-1045. How high a risk is Sweat? You'll hear from Rand Carthon on the lengths they went to properly vet him, and we'll also talk about the Titans roster holes that still have yet to be filled. You want to talk Titans draft? We got you. Jump in there. 615-737-1045 is the number. Is there an element of the Titans draft that you really liked? Whether that's a pick specifically, a theme, a strategy that you could identify, that you thought that you were able to discern? Is there an element of the Titans draft that you did not like? 615-737-1045 is how you weigh in. I've brought up T'Vondre Sweat a couple of times today. He's probably the easiest draft pick of the 7 players to nitpick, I think, at any of this. And I really don't take that much of an issue with it, but, just going through all the necessary discussion points around him, because the DWI is a legitimate question mark that close to the draft, that close to the biggest job interview and job opportunity of your life, that close to generational money, and that you would risk it in that moment, I think is fair for people to criticize no matter what age you are. Now, doesn't mean you can't learn from it, doesn't mean you can't get better from it, doesn't mean that this isn't a player that's going to pay them dividends, because he was clearly really excited to be drafted. And to hear Rand Carthon talk about the experience of vetting, not just scouting, T'Vondre Sweat was something that I thought interesting. In particular, Rand brought up the trip to visit Sweat in his hometown in Texas, and how important that was for Rand to be a part of, Brian Callahan to be a part of, Teresa Walker, and Assistant General Manager Anthony Robinson.
Yeah, so we were his first visit after the incident occurred, and so we brought him in and spent the day with him. If you know him, he's a jovial kid. He's got a great personality, fun loving, but you could see that he was extremely affected, when we brought him in, and we spent a lot of time, talking about it. I know he was ready to talk about it with anybody that wanted to listen, and he was forthright and honest. But something that's not, documented or that has been reported is we actually went down to visit with him and the family, because we wanted to know more and spend more time with not only him but his family and see the people that he surrounds himself with. So myself, Callie, Tracy Rocker, and Anthony Robinson, we flew down, to his hometown and spent the morning with him and his mom and his brother and his grandfather, and really, got to know him as a person and kind of what the expectations would be for us if he was here. And, kind of put that on the line. And we had some tough conversations, while we was there. And not only tough conversations with him, but tough conversations with his family in the room, with the understanding that it's going to take all of us, just like it would be with any other player, just like it's going to be with JC. There's an adjustment period that all these guys have to go through, that not only it's going to take us, but it's going to take the people that they spend the most time with outside of here to help us with that. And so we wanted that to, come across with his family, have a strong relationship with his representation at Clutch Sports and Nicole Lynn. And so being able to have all those different touch points, we had a lot of information, prior to everything. And again, us going down, taking that trip to spend time with him and his family is what made us comfortable making this pick.
Right. I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, you say he was forthright. What did he say? What was kind of his explanation of that night, of what happened?
Well, I won't go into the details of that. I know some of the stuff has been, reported, and you can read about it, and whatever he wants to share, he'll share. But basically, what he told us and what I got from my intel was it aligned. And you could see why those things happened. He was, again, I'll say from the forthright standpoint, he recognized his mistake and the part that he played in it. But, he didn't come through, even though, someone hit him. He didn't use that as an out or a cop out and play the victim part. He accepted his responsibility and what he's learned from it so far.
So that's Rand Carthon talking about the vetting process, not just the scouting process on T'Vondre Sweat. Now, Brian Callahan spoke to the idea of how much the impact of Sweat matters to the football application of not just Sweat, but Latham as well, in his Friday recap press conference.
Yeah, I think, we've added, maybe like 700 pounds worth of player, I think, in 2 picks. And, that's on purpose. That's by design. It's a big man's league. And if you need big people to move the line of scrimmage, we wanted to make sure we invested the right right players into the fronts. Those are important parts of building a football team, and hard to pass up people that are that size and that playing ability. We think that Tavondre can be a 3-down player. He's got ability to push the pocket. He's got explosiveness. He can play the run as good as anybody in the class. And the way that the board unfolded, there was a run on the top 2 receivers left got picked, and then there was a bunch of nose tackles that went ripping off the board as well. So you can see it's a premium around the league, and to have players of his caliber inside to pair with Jeffrey is about it. You should have seen Denard and Tracy Rocker. They were smiling from ear to ear to add a player like that to the defense. So hits us right where we needed some size and some strength, and to pair it with Jeffrey, and really two additions in the first 2 days of guys that we think can be high impact players for us.
That's Brian Callahan speaking on the idea of it being a big man's league. We're going to get to your phone calls. You're also going to hear from one of those big men, J.C. Latham, here in just a second. We're going to go, by the way, the rest of the week before rookie minicamp, and we're going to break down the players. You're going to hear more from their post-draft Zooms, as a matter of fact, but we're focusing in on just the analysis part of today. The rest of the basically get-to-know-you process that we'll do with the new rookies will continue on this week. By the way, you can, if you're coming to the Install Live sponsored by Two Rivers Ford, you can join 3HL. They are kicking off a pre-party. How about that? At World of Beer from 3 to 6 p.m. You can get ready for the live show with Greg Cosell, with special guest Titans GM Rand Carthon, and me this Friday with 3HL at World of Beer. Oh, my God, they're going to come in hot with the pregame situation. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I know that, I think, hell, the whole on-air staff's going to be there as well. Blaine's going to be in the house. Mickey, Dawn, I think Will, and Peyton are going. It's going to be a great time. So we hope to see you guys all out there that bought tickets for the live show on Friday. Chris is in Clarksville waiting patiently. Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys. So I'd have to say my favorite aspect of the draft is that of this draft class for the Titans was that I feel that they filled the holes that they needed to fill. I feel like they're more well-rounded as a team. I feel better about the offensive line with Latham. Sweat, I like the pick there, even though he does have his questions off the field. We'll see what happens there. But and they got solid depth pieces, so I feel encouraged about what they have in place for, like, they laid the foundation, as you said earlier. So, yeah, I like the draft class that they had. The only complaint I would have would be what was mentioned earlier. I would have liked Malik Washington over Jaquan Jackson. Nothing against Jaquan Jackson. I'm sure he's a fine guy and everything, but I like Washington as a prospect overall. But, you know, I guess, yeah, their board's going to be different, I guess, and we just need to trust them at the end of the day, so we'll see what happens. But one thing I did want to mention, I called the Friday before last, just wanted to say I am pretty envious of the Chargers. Not only did they get Joe Alt, but they also got my man Junior Colson, and I did say that.
And didn't they get Ladd McConkey? Didn't the Chargers take? Yeah, they took Ladd McConkey too. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm envious, but at the end of the day, we got a good draft. Congrats to the tens of Chargers fans. I got a great draft class, so happy for them. So we'll see what happens. Thanks, guys.
Happy for the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh just continuing to be a stone cold weirdo is going to be great for the Chargers social media team.
There are dozens of us. My prediction about the Chargers picking at least one Michigan player was correct. They picked 2.
And my prediction about them taking a tackle is 100% so. They took it with their first pick.
Which is my least favorite thing about the Titans draft, and it doesn't even have anything to do with what the Titans did. My least favorite thing about the Titans draft is that the Chargers took Joe Alt at 5 and are going to convert him into a right tackle. Kind of hate it for Joe Alt because his ceiling, as far as second contract, feels significantly lower if he does indeed kick out to the right side. But my biggest hope, my number one hope for this draft for the Titans was that when the dust settles, and we're here talking about it like we are today, the Monday after, I know, for better or for worse, who is going to start day one at left tackle for the Tennessee Titans. I don't feel like I can say that with 100% certainty. I know that they're going to start him out there. I know they believe, and Bill Callahan believes he can make that transition. And Bill Callahan has a decorated career of converting college right tackles into successful NFL left tackles. Full trust in Bill Callahan, but this was Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan talking about where they're going to start Latham and what happens if he needs to play on the right side.
Just out the gate with the what right position is he going to play? Yes, we're going to start him at left tackle. He's played right tackle at Bama. I know he's practiced at left tackle. He's taken reps there, so it's not foreign to him. But yeah, he's going to start off at left for us.
There's a precedent. I mean, guys have played right and played left and made the switch. It's not super uncommon. I mean, it's happened before. So we got a comfort level with the player and the athlete and what he's capable of. And so having him go to left and start out there, and look, if he doesn't feel comfortable there, it doesn't look right and look natural, move him back to right. And like I said the other day, you need tackles, period. So it doesn't really affect us one way or the other which tackle is which tackle he plays. So he's just a really strong, powerful, big, athletic human. There's not a lot of guys that look like him on earth, so we like that. We have guys on the roster that we like. We have we're not done adding players if we feel like we need to find someone somewhere else. It's just part of the process, and we picked the best tackle that we felt like was available to us. And like I said, whether he plays right or left remains to be seen, but we're going to start him at left.
And we mentioned it. When we spoke earlier this week, Paul, about we're getting through this draft. We're going to draft the people where we pick, but that doesn't mean player acquisition's over. So we're going to continue to look to improve just the whole roster as a whole. And like I said, I have all the confidence in the world in the kid that he's going to figure it out. Just because of his makeup, who he is as a human, who he is as an athlete, who he is as a football player. But we're going to always look to continue to add to our roster.
You feel like the starting caliber left tackles available on the market after the draft?
Yeah, there are a ton of guys on the street that have played, a ton of ball that are available to us. But like Coach said, we have guys on our roster that we like. We have guys that we're excited to work with that, we just met, I think it was the night before last, just, getting Coach Bill's his thoughts on the guys that he's working with. And he's excited about working with some of these guys and playing them along. And if you know his track record, no matter what position is your primary position, you're going to learn, other positions. I mean, if you look back to even last year, Nick Petit had primarily been a right tackle, here for us, and in the spur of the moment, he kicked over and and played left for us, and so all that versatility helps us.
There's a couple of different things about that answer that I don't love. I don't like Brian Callahan saying, it doesn't affect us one way or the other if he's a right tackle or a left tackle. It does, because then who's your left tackle? I understand what he's saying, because we talked about this when I came in here on Friday. Justification to me from people that were responsible for helping make the pick was we needed both. Like, it doesn't matter. We needed both, and you can only make one pick.
It's true.
But you can't say that to Titans fans after how bad it's been. I'm sorry, you can't. Like, you have to. It's a small thing for me to nitpick. I understand that. You just can't say, well, it doesn't affect us one way or the other. No. It very much affects everything that has happened here the last 2 years. It affects the psyche of your fan base. It affects the will to win for your football team, because to be consistently undermined by one position over and over and over again in ways that are maddening, you can't just say it doesn't affect us one way or the other. You may not be affected yet, Brian, but the rest of us are, okay? We have all been not affected, but infected by bad left tackle play for the last 2 seasons, and I appreciate that Bill Callahan is here. I trust the man. I've never spoken a word to him. I trust him implicitly, okay? What Slay calls him, offensive line Jesus. OLJ, I'm with you. I'm all in, okay? Still, don't, just be a little more gentle with the rest of us, because we are very fragile, talking about those who have been subjected to Titans left tackle play for the past 2 years. And it's not just a simple, well, we'll find somebody else on the roster, and then to give me NPF as the example just makes me white knuckle a little bit more, because I'm like, no, it's not just that he kicked over there. He was put over there, and he was terrible there. He was not much better as a right tackle, but still, don't give me that as a plus when I know NPF to date to be a minus.
And it's not even that I have a big issue with how they handled it at the 7th pick. It's not Joe Alt off the board. They had no control over that. The Chargers took Alt at 5, so he was not available to the Titans. I just don't like that after the draft, the discussion about the left tackle with them has been even answering questions about other options if it doesn't work for Latham to make that transition. I wanted to, after the draft, know Joe Alt. I don't know if he's going to be good, but I know he's going to be the left tackle. Olufashanu. I don't know if he's going to be good, but I know he's going to be the left tackle. J.C. Latham, I have confidence in Bill Callahan and his ability to lead him through that transition. But the draft is over, and I still don't know with 100% certainty if he is going to be the left tackle because Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon are talking about, hey, if he doesn't, he'll just play on the right and we'll figure something else out.
So let's hear from J.C. Latham about the idea of making that transition over from right to left.
Yeah, making that switch from D-line, left tackle, left to right, playing guard as well, then back to left. It's hard. It's hard for sure, but just consistency and discipline on every single day to just be the best version of yourself. And, I did it at IMG and Alabama when at the time were the pinnacles of, high school and college football. So, it wasn't like I was just doing it at a regular school. I was doing this at, the top schools in their realm of what they play in, So I was going against the best competition in an uncomfortable situation. So now that versatility status is with me, and, I'm comfortable doing whatever I need to do for the success of the team.
J.C. Latham speaking to assembled Titans media at his introductory press conference on Friday. You want to read a comment that's going to make you laugh in the FM Bank chat? Steve Lamb on YouTube, where you can interact with the show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Like the video if you're on YouTube. Says, I really like Brian Callahan so far, but don't you guys think he talks way too much? Like we went from a guy who was mute to a gas bag? Zip it, Callie.
Oh, my God. Vrabel didn't say enough. Callahan says too much. We'd always rather the coach say too much, would we not?
Apparently not.
Steve's out here counting words like an essay.
It's been 2 months and he's tired of it. He say less. I had a coach that said way less than this before. I'm not used to it. Calm down.
That's a 300-word answer. It needs to be 121, no more, no less.
615-737-1045 is the number.
So, all in all, I just don't love that the primary conversation about the Titans all summer is, hey, how's J.C. Latham doing at this transition? Is J.C. Latham going to be able to play left tackle? That's going to be arguably the biggest question that we ask all summer, as opposed to knowing who is going to be the left tackle for better or for worse. None of it might matter. Bill Callahan, resume speaks for itself. And I am confident in his ability to play left tackle under Bill Callahan. I just don't love that we don't know if he can do it 100% for certain.
Well, lucky for you, my friend, we have 3 hours of sports talk radio 5 days a week to talk about just that, and a whole bunch of live shows at training camp to talk about just that. 615-737-1045. We'll get to your phone calls. Last call for them with us. Coming up next, we'll update some polls, then get you over to Blaine and Mickey. Erectile dysfunction is something that affects a lot of guys. It affects about 50% of dudes as we age, as your body starts to change, and it's nothing that you need to freak out about. In fact, the Tennessee Men's Clinic has been helping guys for over a decade deal with ED and so many other issues that age just generally can cause, whether it's your testosterone levels, whether it's your weight gain type of situation. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has been doing ED and weight loss treatments that truly change lives at their 2 locations in downtown Nashville and in Cool Springs, and they are here to help you. It is something that a lot of guys put off or wait to get help with, and that is not really a situation that makes the ED get better. It is something that you want to make sure that you get support for right away, and the Tennessee Men's Clinic is there to make sure that you find the treatment path that makes the most sense for you as an individual, because no one-size treatment for ED works for everybody. They specialize in seeing guys who think they're out of luck, want to regain hope that they can be successful in the bedroom and beyond, and they even offer same or next day appointments. It's time to feel amazing and make sure that you hit your goals this year. So stop thinking about it and make the call. 615-208-9090. 615-208-9090, or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com and book an appointment today. Fun show. Thanks for hanging out. We appreciate it. If you missed any of the last 3 hours, you can subscribe to the podcast. It's available to you in Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can subscribe to the Zone's YouTube channel. You can live stream this nonsense if you're so inclined for 3 hours a day. You could get all 4 shows live streamed there. In fact, you can even get Titans Radio's live draft coverage. They did an excellent job over the weekend. I didn't congratulate Ramon the way that I should have this morning. But him and Mac and Mike, Rhett, Amy, they all put in a ton of work. Jackson as well with all this. You were grinding it through the weekend, weren't you? Doing soccer and Titans draft coverage? You didn't do soccer?
Yeah, I did soccer on Saturday.
Okay, so then you did the whole weekend.
Jackson was grinding all weekend.
Was off on Sunday.
Okay, well, that is a grind nonetheless. So great work by everybody who was involved with the draft coverage. It was a lot of fun. And now we get to talk about actual football players on actual football fields. That will be exciting. 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls. If you got them, Chuck in Clarksville is next.
Hey, Buck. I know a lot of people were worried about DeAndre Sweat, but if you'll remember when Jeffrey Simmons was drafted, he had some off-field incidents that made him, suspected too. And I think Miss Amy and them did a good job of vetting him, and I think they've done a good job on Sweat. So I think he's going to be fine. I think sometimes we just blow some of that a little too far out of proportion. So I'm rolling with Sweat. I think it's a good pick. I mean, Jeff's going to have, he's going to be able to eat now. So let's go Titans.
Oh God! Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck. Over.
Did he just walkie-talkie into the radio show?
That was great.
10-4, buddy. Okay. Sweat and Simmons, their situations are not similar. I understand why people are going to make, the comparison, but for every Jeff, there's a Isaiah Wilson, and these are different administrations that put these draft classes together, so you can't draw complete and total parallels from one to the next to the next. But we will see. I'm not passing judgment one way or the other on the kid, on the vetting process. Everybody gets a clean slate in this, even though he's not coming in with a clean slate. His clock or whatever issues reset when he gets here to me. And I think that's how it should be for Titans fans. It can follow you around. It can be a part of his bio for as long as he's, as long as it's on his record or whatever, but the person that he becomes now is the most important part. And we have zero way to judge that, to figure that out, to determine it scientifically or otherwise.
Well, his job is to make everybody dismiss it out of their minds, right?
Right.
Okay, all that pre-draft, nothing to do with his career. Just like Jeff did. Pretty early on, the perceived red flags from Jeff's pre-draft process, we dismiss. Okay, clearly the ACL is fine, and the stuff that was brought up from his high school days, not an issue. He's a leader. He's a dominant player and all of those things. So I think there are some similarities in that regard. Remember how thankful Jeff was in his first presser on the Titans drafting him 90? Very emotional. I won't let you down. Like that was the rhetoric from Jeff. And the Titans went through a similar process with Devondre Sweat. Say, okay, there's a lot of stuff out here about you. We're going to go out of our way to find out everything we can about it. And they took him with the 38th pick. So I think, the situations were very different.
Yeah, Jeff's was a lot more emotionally charged, though, man. I mean, because this is a person who is on video hitting a woman. Yeah. And at Jeff's size,
sure,
even in high school.
And
there was just jarring.
A lot of context, defending a family member. A lot of context behind it.
There is, but I mean, context is what it is, Lucas. But it's still a person that size. I'm never going to be okay with that. What he has done since then is proved that that was an isolated incident, that he learned from his mistakes, egregious though that mistake is, and that the person that you are in that moment does not mean that is the person that you are for the rest of your life. And that's for everybody, no matter what kind of mistakes you make. Polls, please.
Hello, my name is Borat. There is a show in America called Buck Rising.
Just to do any serious conversation and go right to this.
As a man named Lucas, like my producer, Azamat Bagatov, will update something called Final Pollings. I'm very excited, very excited. Do it, Lucas. La 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 la.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What is your favorite thing about the Titans NFL draft? Kenneth says, my Texas bias will say T'Vondre Sweat, but J.C. Latham will hopefully let me watch competent football on offense this season. Mike says Cedric Gray, the linebacker out of UNC, was his favorite. Chef Ran on Twitter says Big Sweat, talking about T'Vondre. V-Man says the fact that it's over and maybe having 3 solid starters out of it.
Yeah, having it over. Having it over is my new favorite thing about the Titans draft, because now it means we can actually talk about players. The Tape Farm on YouTube says, what? No Nashville Cats talk? 49-12 home win. Half kidding.
1-0.
Arena football back, baby.
What is your least favorite thing about the Titans NFL draft haul? John says no trade downs to get extra picks. Not going to complain about anyone we picked, but would have liked more chances to get players. Dunny also says not trading back for more picks in the second, but also he says if Sweat works out and the scheme fits both him and Simmons, then I would be wrong. Eric says we needed more depth than we got, especially in the 5th to 7th rounds. Would have loved trading down, but choosing to trust that they didn't think they could. So the biggest thing is nobody has issues, it seems, with the picks themselves. They just wanted more.
I'm with them. I think that there were opportunities for more. Would it have gone exactly their way, the way that it did in this particular situation where they stuck and picked at every selection that they have? Who's to say? But you just have so many needs all over the place. And the people were, somewhat underwhelmed with the draft class when all year long, for 2 years, we've been talking about what on the roster needs fixing. They went out and fixed it to the best of their abilities.
Describe the Titans 2024 NFL draft class in one word. Brian says promising. Eric says serious. John says power. Anthony says forthful. Gregolus says thick with 2 C's. Big Chig Energy says trenches. Luke says necessary. Andrew says underwhelming. Kenneth goes beef. That's my word. Beef.
Not one trench king, but 2.
Yours was what?
Meat, hyphen, and hyphen potatoes.
Not and, just N, just the letter N.
Oh, is that how you do it?
Meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Meat and taters.
It's like
meat and taters. Thank you, Jackson.
That was his only contribution to the radio show today.
Scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence level that the Preds can bounce back? V-Love says today, 0, tomorrow night, 10. Karen says, I have battered Preds syndrome now.
Oh, no. BPS is not made in an appearance.
That was the first time, by the way, that the Preds blew a 2-goal lead in the third period to lose a playoff game in franchise history.
I'm starting to get a little BPS with these blown leads, man.
Anthony's giving it a 2. D-West is giving it a 2. Will a 0. Tighten Up JP gives it an 8. He's a little more optimistic, but not many people optimistic the Preds can battle back from down 3-1 after blowing that lead yesterday.
Who's the goalie for Game 5? Do we know yet?
For the Preds?
No, for the Canucks.
I assume it'll be the same. I have not seen an update. On the backup. And Demko, it seems to be serious. I don't know that Thatcher Demko plays on Tuesday.
Just imagine the Canucks get past you with their third-string goalie, and then they're undone in the next round because their great goalie is not playing in this series or played but one game in this series. It's really, really underwhelming what the Preds did last night.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed.
Casey DeSmith it was really late. It was like the day of. Casey DeSmith isn't playing today, so I don't know what his status is going to be.
Those polls?
Those are the polls.
All right, very good. That's the show. It was a lot of fun. Check out the podcast. Like I said, prime time tonight at 7 p.m. It's new time. We'll continue to react. Break down the Titans draft class. Blaine and Mickey continue to react. If you want to get in on the phone lines with them, you can do so early because they're coming up next.